There's this guy named Charlie Kirk. Some of you may know him as heavy-hitting right-wing activist. Some of you may know him for the guy that got shot on September 10th, 2025. First, let me begin. Before I want to talk about how violence is unacceptable, blah, 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 we need to dive into the pattern that's emerging. First, our voting power is taken away. Then, our protests are being criminalized. The reasonable people in power can't do shit about it because the unreasonable people in power just do whatever the fuck they want. The only people in the USA that currently have power are the unreasonable. And on the side of people who aren't assaulting kids, deploying troops on US citizens, and ruining the economy are just people who are willing to go to jail about it. Should they peacefully protest? Of fucking course they should. But let me ask, if these people are willing to go to jail to get their voices heard, why would you go to jail for just standing in front of a police officer when you could do shit like this? Violence is not the answer, and unreasonable people should not be in charge of the movement. But unreasonable people are in charge of our fucking government, so fuck it, I guess. We're killing people in the street. I understand it. I can sympathize. But I'm pissed off because, frankly, there are better ways to do things. There are better targets if you're gonna do shit like this, and there's a bigger issue to tackle. Violent lawlessness opens the doors to chaos. If this goddamn channel was bigger, that could have been me. That could have been Pearlmania. That could have been Fritz the Dev, or Secular Talk, or Legal Eagle, or any of the other political content creators. We cannot be shooting the messenger literally. That man was a debater for content. Luigi Mangione, if he's actually guilty, shot the Healthcare United CEO, and that made enough of a difference that their shareholders actually sued them for lost profits when they reacted by treating their patients better. Murder might be the only thing that fucking works anymore. But this man was just a speaker. Anyway, the pattern. First, our voting power is taken away. Blame boomers having majority vote for 30 years, alienating every other generation from being able to democratize their power. Blame gerrymandering, rigging the outcomes of the popular vote. Or blame politicians who can't keep their goddamn campaign promises. All faith in the vote is lost. Second, they criminalize our protests. Rubber bullets being fired on protesters and reporters who are doing nothing. National Guard deployed in strategic locations where they can quell riots. Third, reasonable people lost control over the situation. Trump is ignoring what law says he can and can't do, violating and stalling out Supreme Court decisions, overwhelming the House and the Senate with more new laws than they can handle, restructuring the executive branch, and replacing agency leaders with loyalists. Any reasonable person does not have the means to push against all that. And so number 4, unreasonable people have to step up. Shootings and violence. Yeah, they can just peacefully protest, but if they're prepared to get punished for it, they might as well go all the way over the edge. Mentally unhealthy people who are the canaries in the coal mine who go off the rails because they see that they can. I don't want that. I don't advocate for that. But if what I was doing actually did anything, then that something would be done. What I want you to understand is that no amount of glorifying or demonizing this act can do anything anymore because we royally fucked everything up. Frankly, as much as I'm trying to play this angle of a YouTuber and content creator for change, being a voice on the internet ain't doing shit except getting a shot, apparently. Listen to me and listen to me good. Political violence must not continue. But unless effective, non-violent means of change are reconstructed and protected by those in power, which is something they must do and aren't doing, all that will happen is the impression of peaceful minds, leaving violence as the gross polluting runoff of exploitative and ambitious politics. I don't have to tell you that me and Charles don't agree. We're not on the same part of the political spectrum. I don't know who he was before today, but from what I can gather, he was a dumpster of a human being. He was in the middle of spreading the false truth that trans people are responsible for the most mass shootings right as he got shot. 98% of mass shootings are committed by cisgender male, 2% by women, and the rest, the trans people, are the rounding error in between. I have the clip of him getting shot here. I'm not going to show you the graphic part, but viewer discretion is advised.
This is it. Yeah, is that fair to say? All right, great. So, do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
And here's another clip of him saying that a few gun deaths a year are acceptable if it means keeping our Second Amendment right to defend our God-given rights, which are also worded as our unalienable rights in the Constitution.
You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights.
And here's him from that same speech saying how the way to reduce gun deaths is to put more fathers in households.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to 0. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home.
Frankly, if his arguments rest on strawman drivel and sexist religious garbage, I can imagine hating the guy. But he's just a speaker. Well, he's a little more than a speaker. He runs the nonprofit Turning Point USA, whose goal is to put more conservative viewpoints in schools K through college, which is a fair argument that I looked up the data on and listened to podcasts about. Most people of higher education are left-leaning. And the debate is still hot, whether this is due to political discrimination or the difference of higher intelligence. Colleges are struggling to hire right-wing teachers and staff to have their voice on campus. But by a study ran by the Manhattan Institute, as many as 55% of academics, that includes staff and students, admitted that they would refuse to hire someone if they found out that they were right-wing leaning. Turning Point USA does claim that they played a major role in securing the Gen Z votes for Trump, but that's all he did. All his foundation does is go to college campuses and speak. At the end of the day, this man was just a speaker. Much like me, much like many other content creators. And if that's all it takes to get shot, then you better make mine just as viral. I don't want it just as much as the right doesn't want it, but we've been treated in a way that'll make political violence stick around until we kick that fat fucking Cheeto out of office. I can't do shit about the will of the people, but if the right people hear this, then they can sure as fuck do something about the actions of our government. Thank you so much for watching, and stay a fan.